Welcome again after a break. Time for the next speech. If you are looking for useful tips on workflow improvement, request prioritizing and backlog management in the constantly changing environment, this one is for you. Our speaker is an accredited Kanban trainer and Kanban coach. She likes to support her teams using many different agile tools and practices. Privately, mom of 3 cats and a gamer. Please welcome Ewa Mika.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ewa. I'm actually freshly appointed accredited Kanban trainer, and this presentation is mostly about my work as a Scrum Master and Kanban coach. So please join me for this journey. And I wanted to start sharing a little bit of context. What is our product? As you can see here, this is the setup we had in Elements, which is very much complex billing solution for energy market. It was quite big in January. As you can see, we had 10 teams, and those teams were development teams focused on the development of new functionalities. We call them Scrum teams because they are working in a Scrum framework, sort of, because when we have so many teams in one product, it's more like the scaling framework than the Scrum itself. But that's not all. We also have teams that are supporting teams. Some may call them enabler teams. And those are the teams that support the development of features and are there to help our Scrum teams whenever they can. And those are architects team, which are guiding like how the solution should be built and keeping everything like the overview of the entire infrastructure and architecture of our solutions. We have platform team, which are taking care of our pipelines and creating the platform which our teams can use for the deployments. We have ETL team, which is taking care of migrations of databases from the customers to our system. And the QA team, which is not the external testers team. This is quite important. QA team in our setup is taking care of quality assurance of the entire product, including not only the software development, but also including some processes and how we approach defects management and audits, everything included. So we have quite a big setup with different responsibilities. And overall, in January, it was quite difficult to get to know what each team is doing. When I was asking people from one of the teams, what is doing team 4, what is doing team 10, what is doing team 7? It's hard to know everyone in such a big setup. So what changed? Right now, in November, our setup changed to kind of this drawing. I'm not very best at drawing, but I hope you get the idea. So right now we have those enabler teams, and as you can see, there is one more team, which is the shell team, and this is the team that is focusing mostly on our UI and, taking care of making our user experience and user interface similar in the whole system. So this is like, everything makes sense and comes together. And here, those 5 teams that we have that are enablers, that are helping developers to develop their new functionalities to our product, are now not only helping the teams, but like the aggregation of teams. We have smaller groups around goals or customer processes to avoid so complex communication like we had before. And right now, in smaller groups, it's easier to communicate, it's easier to work, but as you can see, there is more than 11 teams right now, and we are growing, so there will be more. We can change the schematic, how we organize in teams in many ways, but that doesn't change the situation for the enablers teams, because they still need to be able to serve all the teams that are around them. And this is my point of view. This story will be from my point of view. This is me some time ago. And this is point of view of the Scrum Master, Kanban coach. I was the Scrum Master for Team 2 and Team 10. And I was also supporting Kanban implementation in Architects team and in the Platform team. And Platform team is the one I want to share with you today. So the first rule of Kanban approach, of evolutionary change, is to start where you are now. So at the last year, in December, platform team came to me and they say, well, we are sort of working in Scrum. We have Scrum iterations, but we don't actually use it the way we're supposed to use it, and those iterations doesn't make sense because we have a lot of urgent requests which we cannot plan, and we want to do something different. We want to have Kanban. And I was very interested in Kanban as a Kanban coach, so I was like, whoa, someone said Kanban. Okay, here I am, I can help you. But do you actually know what it is, what that means? Why do you want to choose it? Basic questions. So as the first rule is start with what you do now. We first needed to know what we are doing right now. And that was the first step. I prepared some workshops for the team for the beginning to establish if we actually really need this Kanban approach and what we expect from it. So before the workshop, I asked the team to write down all activities they are performing or tasks they have, real life examples. They could even put some links to our system. It's like just to have the examples of activities they are performing in their daily work. And the second one was issues we face right now. They had around 2 weeks to think about the issues they face, what is hard for them, what they would like to change, what is disturbing their work. And from, well, the list was a little bit bigger, but they chose top 3 issues that we want to work on. Then, when we gathered all of this before the workshop, we started from explaining what is Kanban. Question to you. Maybe that was a good question. Who knows here? What is Kanban? Any ideas? No, it's not a methodology. Oh, that's some nice thinking. Yeah, good. That's one of the Kanban practices. Actually, Kanban as a word itself means a couple of different things. We can have Kanban signal, Kanban card, Kanban board, or Kanban system. And here I'm talking about Kanban system. So what is the Kanban system? Kanban system is basically a method to improve the process. So whatever our process is, if it's chaotic, if it's Scrum, if it's waterfall, whatever, however it looks like, we can improve it using Kanban. So yeah, I explained that to the team, like what are the basic rules, what is the pull system, what does it mean that we have 6 practices, what are those practices? I will tell a little bit about it in a minute. And then I asked the team to match issues to practices and tell me what are the expected outcomes. So actually, they did it themselves. Coming back to those practices I mentioned. So a quick recap. What are we talking about? What are those Kanban practices? So the first one is visualization. We cannot improve the process if we don't know how does it look like. That's pretty obvious. We need to have it visualize what is going on step by step, who is doing what where, so that we can analyze it and improve. Then we have limiting work in progress. Thank you very much. So we try to avoid context switching. We try to focus on the least amount of topics possible so that we can finish them faster. Because yeah, this is like proven scientific fact. You can do this little game by yourself to try out and measure how fast can you write down 10 letters and 10 numbers when you are writing them from A to J, just letters, then numbers from 1 to 10. And then the second approach when you are writing A1, B2, C3, so with the context switching. Always the second result will be longer. I encourage you to do it at home. So in general, we want to minimize the context switching to increase our productiveness, to increase the efficiency. Then we have managed the flow. So yeah, we have those WIP limits, but we constantly taking more work than we agreed to limit. So we are not managing the flow. That won't work. Yeah? So this is also important to remember about managing of our work. Then clear policies. We should have clearly stated what is what. Everyone understands the same way What does it mean that we have something refined? What does it mean that something is already tested? And so this should be clearly stated, the best if they are written down. Feedback loops. Feedback loops, this is quite agile, actually, right? So if we want to improve anything, and especially in Kanban, which is evolutionary approach, we need to have those feedback loops to verify if we are going into the right direction, and if our improvements are actually improving our ways of working, or not exactly, because it's not so obvious. And last but not least, experiments. So we want to make experiments. We want to try out new ideas, new things, because maybe this is the idea that will help us become more effective or bring more value. So we want to include experiments in our work, and we want to measure the outcomes so that we can analyze it based on data. So start where you are now. Okay, we know those 6 practices. So for those 3 issues, we are trying to solve. The main 3 were priorities change hour by hour. This is very common in any operational, supporting, whatever teams. User stories which are moved from sprint to sprint. That's also kind of self-explanatory, because if we have a lot of urgent work that is disrupting our planned work, then the stories we planned are waiting for better times. Operational work coming into sprint backlog during the sprint. Again, it's still connected to those 2. So then what can we do to handle those issues? And those are the practices that were not chosen by me. Developers chose them. And this is actually something that makes this case study a success story and not a failure story. Because it's much easier when the team says that, hey, we want to have WIP limits. Hey, we want to have different swim lanes for different services. We want to measure how long the tickets are staying in a system. And if they want to do it, and I'm only teaching them how to approach it, how to do it more easily, then I don't have to keep track on it so that it will happen, right? Because they are keeping an eye on it. They want to do it. They are engaged. So what is the most important from this entire approach at the beginning of the workshops when I explained what is Kanban, what is the pull system, what are the practices, and then the team decide? Well, this is like the most important thing. If you leave this conference and remember only one thing from my speech, please let it be this. Yeah? To all Scrum Masters, Agile coaches who are watching us right now, please let the team choose and decide what they want to implement and how they want to do it. This is really something that I take from this case study, and you will see why it was so important. So, what next? Next, we have a lot of stuff on Mural that is looking, well, really small right now for you, but don't worry. So, next what we did, there was also this list of activities next to the list of issues at the beginning. So then we took a look at this list of activities from examples, what are they doing in their daily work, and we wrote down for who is it done, so who is the recipient. Then we write down what is the SLA, is it recurring task, should we have higher priority on it or maybe lower priority, and what is the impact of delay. Because sometimes we think that things that are important are actually not so important, because when we analyze it, we can see that if we do this in 1 month later, it still will be fine, because the impact of delay is so small that it doesn't bother us. Then, for those activities, we were mapping the workflow so that we can see if we treat them the same way in our system. We use the impact of delay patterns to actually not define, but to be able to discover the classes of services. And what is the class of service? Class of service in Kanban is like the group of activities that are treated the same way in the system. So, for example, if we have incidents and we have user stories, those are two different classes of services, because incidents will have higher priority, needs to be taken care of ASAP. Probably we'll have some service level agreement on less than 1 day or something like that. While the user stories can take longer, can be planned, so we treat them differently. And then, and only then, we started to design our Kanban board. In many cases, in many companies, people start from designing the Kanban board. And this is actually more like the last step of implementing Kanban. So then we created a draft, moved this to Azure DevOps. Constant improvement. We established that we want to have a flow review, so like this meeting every 4 weeks to do inspect and adapt of our workflow, of our system, of our metrics as well. This is the template we use. And as you can see, we had a lot of flow reviews, a lot of small improvements until May. What we have here? We have the perfect team. 0 action points, 0 improvements, because they are perfect. Everything is green. I know you don't see it so well on this chart, but believe me, everything is great. We are awesome. There is nothing to improve. Keep it up. Okay. If the team thinks they are so great, this is actually something that the Kanban method is calling a false plateau. So the moment when the team feels like, wow, we're so great, we improved so much, we don't have to do anything else. So what happened next month? Yeah, as you can see there, outliers, what happened? Yeah, we had a lot of outliers. We had decrease of throughput and yeah, some talks and action points as well. So even if something looks great, we might still want to include some improvements later on. One final conclusion from all those flow reviews. It's never the same. The Kanban system changes over time. It evolves. It's like when I'm showing you right now, and I will in a minute, what the board looks like, what are the process steps. This is the snapshot of our reality for today. If you ask me, or maybe if you meet me on another conference in a couple of months, I can be telling the same case study with a different outcomes, because maybe in a couple of months, our board will look completely different, because maybe something will change, because maybe the amount of teams will change. Like, I don't know, if we right now have 15 teams, if we will have 30, I'm sure that the ways of working of the platform team have to look different in that situation. So this is a very important thing to remember. It's never like the fixed in time how we should improve our process. It's always evolving, it's always a journey, and we should always inspect and adapt to adjust to the new reality and new needs and new issues we find. I was talking about visualization in Azure DevOps and our boards and process steps, so here it is. A sprint backlog active close. This is how the board of the team looked like in January, and this is how it looks like right now. Today. So after all those changes, it looked different in the middle, but the final version is here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 swim lanes, so 4 different classes of services, 4 different groups of items that are treated differently in the system with slightly different workflow. And we have process steps like development, review, deployment, resolved. Kind of basic. What happened here? Here is more interesting part, because during one of the flow reviews, we find out that we have the issue in the upstream. So what does it mean before the development starts? And I believe that all of you met that situation, that development is doing fine, but requirements preparation, well, not so well. And well, we can improve there as well, right? Like no one is stopping us to improve our backlog. So what happened before the development? We mapped also the process on the earlier stages. So here we have states new, then we have initial refinement. This is mostly made by PO when he gathers requirements, etc. Then we have team refinement, and this is all happening before the development starts. And then we have the downstream. So here is this board working as well. So you have 2 boards, one on the higher level, on the feature level, and the second board for the developers only for the development part. And I strongly encourage you to try out using the tools that you have in your companies and map the end-to-end workflow of the feature development to see what is going on also during the refinement stages. Don't keep the product backlog flat. Make it visible. Okay, so metrics. Because we are talking about what we did, what visualization, but what did it give us? Where are the outcomes? So, of course, we should always look at the data, not our instincts, if anyone is not sure yet. So what data were we looking at? First of all, for the statistical process control, I don't know if you ever heard that term. Statistical process control is basically using statistics and math for improving the processes. So here we have a lot of different things we were looking at. We are looking at our lead times and cycle times, so the time we need to complete an item from one state to another. And we also measure what is the completion time of the features, how many features we have in each state, how many of them are active at the same time. We are also using histograms to see the distribution of probability that something will happen between some time frame or will be finished before some date. I won't jump so too deep into that because I know that this is like topic for another speech. But if you have any questions, please feel free to approach me later on. This is like the final slide regarding outcomes because it has all the most important parts. Yeah, this is actually part of the executive report summary I wrote after implementation in May. So what we have? We have increased throughput, predictability, and focus. We have faster delivery, and we have clear tracking of our work. So from January till May, we had 64% increase in delivery rate. And, this is very important, the size of work was not smaller. When we look at this diagram, it's actually have the data until September this year, so a little bit more than on the left. And we can see what happened in the specific point in time. So one interesting thing here. Here we have actually stable delivery rate, more or less completed the same amount of items. And here we decreased the WIP limit so that we have less items open at the same time. And look what happened. Nice increase of delivery rate. Then here we had a lot of operational work. As you can see, it doubled from before. So we were like, okay, we have a lot of operational work, we have big deployments, we have more teams, because the setup is still growing in the background, right? Like, please remember, there were 6 teams, then 10, 11, then we had 12, 13, right now 15, something like that. So we decided that if we have so many operational tasks, maybe they are not all the same. And we split it the deployments as a separate work item. Why? Because the deployments were very much, they were very visible in our reports and in our metrics because they had fixed date. And it was always like 1 week window. So they were always 1 week old or longer if they were waiting for another window. So we wanted to split them so that we can see how many sorry for my English, how much effort we need to actually be able to deliver stuff that we want to plan, that we promise, and stuff that is happening all the time on demand. This is the feedback from the team. Mostly positive. One thing that is not so positive, but maybe a little bit eye-opening, that keeping statuses updated was hard. It requires effort to get used to. But once we get used to it, it's actually better visualization. It's easier to remember what to do next. Makes it easier to verify when to start new work. And those 3 here, those are my observations. I think you can guess that. So what are the conclusions of this great success. Kanban is a journey. That's the first conclusion. It is evolutionary change approach. It requires time, and we bring small changes, and over time we can see big results. Let the team decide. This is something mostly for Scrum Master, Agile coaches, Kanban coaches, and all process and team people. Let the team decide and choose what they want to use. It's really, trust me, it's much easier if you don't have to convince developers that this will help them. And drive constant improvement, based on data, of course. That would be it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are you guys having any questions to Ewa right now? Okay.
Thank you, great presentation. My first question would be, if you did this for only 2 teams, how then did you scale the solution? And 2, how did you get the approval from the management to allow the scaling?
Okay, so, oh, no, I wanted to go back to the presentation. Here we are. Okay, and once again. So, here, right now, we have 5 enablers teams. And yes, I started last year in December from platform team and architects team. But right now, I am working with ETL team, QA team, and Shell team as well. And from the new year, like right now I'm in the middle of transition, let's say, because I'm leaving the Scrum Master role and moving more towards those Kanban teams. So from new year, I will have mostly focus on that. And regarding the management permission, well, when the team came to me that they feel like using sprints doesn't make sense and calling it Scrum doesn't make sense because it's not true, we don't actually need any permission to make those changes, especially that we started from what we are doing now. We only changed the visualization. And then by measuring and introducing small improvements, we changed what we did. And actually, this is similar to what Scrum teams are doing on the retrospectives. So also nothing that requires higher managers' approval. But then, when we had those outcomes and the executive summary report in May, it was pretty easy to show the positive results. Yeah. So when the management sees such results, it's much easier to then talk about introducing Kanban to other teams, especially that actually in our setup, other teams are coming to me, not me to them. So it's much easier when the team wants to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. We still have 3 minutes, so if you have any questions, please ask them now or remain silent.
Hi, thank you for a great presentation. Because I'm new to the role, Scrum Master, and I'm still learning, so everything is seems like very similar to me. Can you tell me in a short way what is the main difference between the Scrum right now that was previously, and what is the difference? Because, for example, I noticed that there were feedback loops, for example, which can be similar to retrospectives. Mm-hmm. And what is the difference between meetings? Because from my perspective, it's a very important mm-hmm. part of the work. And can you summarize this?
Yeah, sure. So the Scrum is basically the framework, how to approach complex work and develop product, deliver value. Yeah, so this is how we want to work. And Scrum framework is telling us that we need to improve, that constant improvement is something that we want to have. On the other hand, we have Kanban and Kanban method, to be specific, because this is what I'm referring to mostly in my presentation. And Kanban method is the way to improve the process. So this is the method showing you how constantly improve. So you can have Scrum, and this is Kanban. You can have them together. You can have them separately. Yeah, like they can work together. They can work on separate. They are just a little bit different things. And regarding your questions to the flow review, actually our flow review in platform team well, maybe we can call it team retrospective. Because flow review, main difference between flow review and team retrospective is that the flow review includes more than one team, because it includes every person that is engaged in the value stream, so in our process. Yeah. So if we wanted to do like this proper flow review, we should probably also invite maybe some developers as well, as they are participating in the platform team process. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much for answering. We are out of time, so thank you very much, Ewa, for your presentation.
Thank you.